Hello and welcome back to another command block tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to throw swords. So it's a pretty simple contraption, what we got right here. Basically, anytime I'm holding an iron sword and I sneak, it's going to throw the sword. It's going to get stuck in a wall and I can go and simply pick it up. Like I said, I'll just throw it into this wall again. You can kind of see it kind of will get like lodged partway into whatever block it's hitting. You can just walk over it, pick it right back up. If there's any mobs in the way, it's gonna damage them. You can change the number to make it like do a little bit of damage. You can make do a lot of damage. It's kind of up to you guys. You're more than welcome to experiment, and I'll show you guys, as per usual, I'll show you guys kind of the best ways you can mess around with it. But it's a really fun, cool contraption that you guys can make.
Go back to try and hit a dude. Oh!
Let's get right into the commands. So one interesting thing you'll see right off the bat that's a little different from the majority of my commands is this little thing right here. So the reason that this exists, I'm gonna even just demonstrate what's going on here before I actually go through and explain the commands. Just find armor stand. So the way that we're doing the sword is we have an invisible armor stand holding a sword, and we specifically have him in this pose, because that's the only pose that's going to make the armor stand basically go vertical. Now, you might be wondering, how is this redstone at all tied to what we have going on here? We need to somehow change the pose of the armor stand here. Now, obviously, you saw as I'm basically sneaking and clicking, it's going to change the pose, but obviously we can't be doing this several times every time we spawn in a new sword. And I just threw my sword. So, if you guys may or may not know this, but different redstone power levels will actually change the pose of an armor stand to something unique. So, I will start spawning these on the redstone. You can see they're immediately changing their pose. The first few are the same, then we start getting into different poses. You can see they all have different poses, and when I actually give them a sword, just so you can see what it looks like, it's the one at the very end that's actually holding the sword how we need it. So basically what we're going to do is you have, so what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 redstone dust from a power source. You could use a lever, I just use a redstone block, whatever is like a full power source. And we're going to have 2 armor stands. One is basically going to be the sword in this position. It's going to be invisible. And then there's going to be another armor stand that's controlling the position of the sword. But the important thing is when we're spawning in the visual one, we actually have to spawn it on this block and then teleport it to the other armor stand. That way we make sure it's in the right pose. So I just want to explain that to you before we get into the commands, because it's going to make a little bit more sense why I'm doing it this way instead of just spawning the armor stand in the right place. The other question you might be wondering is, why not just use a play animation? Because you can make this kind of have a pose with a play animation. However, it's really kind of buggy. I tried doing that at first. This is just a lot more of a reliable system to make this work. But alright, let's actually show off the commands. Accidentally activate the garage door. So to start off, it's pretty simple. What we're going to be doing is checking if the player has an iron sword in their hand and they're sneaking, add the tag throw. If you guys don't know how to check if they're sneaking, I have a full tutorial on that, but that's what we're doing to start. It's going to give the player the tag throw. Then, if the player is not holding an iron sword, go ahead and remove the tag throw. Additionally, if you are no longer sneaking, it's also going to remove the tag throw. And basically that's how we're going to control when we're actually going to be activating the sword throw. So the next one, as you can see, it's a little bit longer. This is going to be basically setting up the armor stands, spawning them both, getting them in the right position at the right orientation. So the very first thing that we're going to do is summon an armor stand at the player with the tag throw, and we're going to name it sword. This is going to be an invisible armor stand that is just going to be holding the position. It's not going to be holding anything. It doesn't have any visual effect. It just stores the position of where your projectile is. The next command is going to be summoning the actual sword visual. So we have sword and we're naming it Viz, which is short for visual. Obviously you can name it something else, just make sure you use the same name throughout. Instead of spawning it at the player, we're going to spawn at these specific coordinates. So for me, the coordinates that you see in this command block are the end of this redstone dust. Wherever your redstone dust ends, that's the coordinates you need here. So it's going to change slightly. Keep that in mind when you're making this. The next thing we're going to do is actually give the sword visual armor stand an iron sword. Pretty simple. Just type this command how you see it. Then it gets a little bit more interesting. So we're going to check for the sword, which is the actual position. And unless there's already a sword visual, so the one that's holding the sword, it's going to teleport the closest sword visual armor stand to the armor stand that's holding the position. So it's going to teleport the sword visual that is at the redstone dust. It's going to teleport that over to where the sword is. Then we're going to give invisibility to the sword, and we're going to give invisibility to the sword visual. After that, we are going to be making the item trident throw sound, just so it makes a little bit of a noise whenever you throw it. And then we are going to basically remove the sword from the player's inventory. That way it's actually looking like it's getting consumed. Why is there a wandering trader on the roof? Where did it go? Alright, rewind the video if you guys didn't see it, because I just saw a wandering trader and disappeared. Entirely unrelated to the tutorial. Anyways, as I was saying, so the next part is kind of finicky. What we're doing here is basically allowing the sword to teleport forward as long as it is in an air block. Then this is the most interesting command, I'll say. Basically what we're doing is teleporting the actual, like, executing at the sword, teleports the sword visual slightly behind and slightly to the side, and as well as rotate it. Because if you'll notice here, we go back to this example. I'm gonna put a helmet or something on here so you can see it a little bit better. One thing, and also, if you guys mess around with redstone, you can make an armor stand dance really easily. Anyways, one thing you'll notice is that the armor stand is actually facing in this direction, like about the direction I'm facing right now, but the sword is facing in this direction. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to be throwing the sword sideways, so not only do we have to move the position of the armor stand to make sure that it's in the correct position, we have to change the rotation. Because one thing you'll also notice, if we just teleported the sword directly onto it, then the sword's not right in the center, the sword's like off to the side. So you actually have to do a bunch of positioning to make sure the sword is in the center of where it ought to be. And that's what this command is. I did a bunch of finicking to make sure that this is the right positioning for you guys, so just copy this command exactly how you see it. This command is very similar. It's basically saying, unless the sword is in an air block, so if it's not in the air, then, or if there's not an air block in front of it, just teleport itself straight up, like to where it currently is. That way it's not going to be like hitting a wall and then slowly sliding down, because it would look kind of weird. And the next one is very similar to actually the very first one. This is just going to allow the sword to teleport forward, even if it is in tall grass. Because otherwise it would get stuck on like tall grass like this. As you can see, it can go through those types of things, but if it didn't, then it would get stuck and it looks weird. Alright, we're getting towards the end of the commands. Basically, it's going to be saying, at the sword, if there is no player within 2 blocks, give itself the tag dead. Then, if a player is within 1.5 blocks of something that has the tag dead, then just kill it. And this kills both the armor stands. So this one kills the visual, this one kills the normal one. Now, you might be asking, why did I do that? So the way the sword works is, as soon as I throw it, the way I go to pick it up, as soon as I approach it, it will kill both armor stands. However, because I'm obviously close to it when I start the throw, I don't want it to be going right away. So basically, once it gets a little bit away from the player, then it is going to get a tag, meaning that it can be picked up whenever you approach it. If I didn't do that, let's say I just throw it right here, you can see I can't pick it up, so I have to back up. Now it has the tag, so I can go pick it up when I get closer. That way it's just not automatically being picked up as soon as I throw it. And the final command is just the damage. So this is the one that, like I said, I always encourage you guys to mess around with. Basically, what we're doing here is checking for the sword, and it's going to do a damage command. Basically anything that the sword comes into contact with. So anything that the center of the sword where it even hits the hitbox, and one of the reasons I'm doing DX right here, that means anytime I collide with the object, like whatever I'm trying to hit, then it's going to instantly do damage. Actually, it should be DX0. So basically, as soon as the armor stand hits the hitbox of anything, that means the bigger things will be easier to hit compared to using radius. But basically, anytime it hits something, boom, deal damage. And that's it. That's all the commands. It might sound kind of confusing, but if you guys just kind of walk it through, it really isn't. And quite frankly, I just think this is such a cool little contraption. I mean, you have a little... Oh, dang it. I missed. I can't. There we go. Can't aim, apparently. Also, this was a really nostalgic thing for me to create because I talked about in a previous video how I got started doing one command block creation videos. One of the very first one command block creation videos I did was basically a throwing sword. And so being able to recreate this myself, like several years later, was just a really cool experience for me. I hope you guys enjoy, found this educational, and found this fun. If you guys ever need help, please make sure to join the Discord. You're welcome to leave a comment, but I promise you'll get much better help if you join the Discord. The link will be in the description.